Welcome to Comedy Centric, your place for all things comedy. Every week we'll discuss the legends and the people who built the business. The performers, writers, behind the scenes, and stories that you have never heard. So relax, take a load off, and join us for this episode of Comedy Centric. Now, the host of your show, nationally headlining comedian, a woman with a wicked sense of humor and a killer Jersey accent, Julia Scotti.
You know, my sister was yelling at me about my accent today. I don't think I have an accent, but what are you going to do?
You do have an accent, Julia.
Apparently, I guess, because people are suddenly noticing it, like I just developed it.
Because we put a big beacon on it at the beginning of the show.
I know we're still trying to figure out what this taking a load off means, but that's a whole other show.
You know what taking a load off means.
I know, but it sounds gross.
No, it's not. It's like you're unloading yourself. You're sitting back. You're relaxing. You're getting off your feet.
Oh well, I got lots going on today.
You got a lot of load.
I'm saving the planet. Speaking of loads,
really?
Yes, I ordered this toilet paper, 24 rolls, made out of bamboo paper. It's not bamboo. You know,
does it come with a koala bear?
Oh, it comes with a panda. No, it's supposedly it's no trees are harmed.
Is it soft?
It works pretty well.
Can you tell the difference?
I haven't gotten it yet. I'll tell. I'll let
you just
know.
Ordered it.
Yeah, but it's 3-ply, so I'm excited.
What made you go the bamboo route?
I'm always. I believe it or not, you may not believe this, but I am concerned about the planet.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, how you doing?
I'm
You
good.
had a good weekend.
I had a big weekend. I had a family reunion back in my hometown
On
in
Walton's Mountain.
Yep, up on the mountain, Western Pennsylvania. And I saw people I haven't seen in 35 years. And when you hug people you haven't seen in 35 years, it freaks them out because they're like, "Who the hell are you?" I'm like, "I'm Kathy."
Do you recognize them? Did you
Only a couple people. Only like a handful of people.
So did they get name tags? Did everybody get a name tag?
I would just say to my sister, I go, "Who's that?" And she'd go, "That's so-and-so."
Yeah, that's Aunt Chickie's
There were
kid.
some people there that we didn't eat. At the end of the night, when my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother-in-law, we had all cleaned up, and we were sitting around, and we go, "Who are those people in the corner?" There were people there that we had no idea who they were. Nobody knew who they were. They were just there.
You have to come with me to my next high school reunion because it freaks people out. I walk in and they go, "Who are you?" And I go, "Oh, you remember me? Oh yeah. You haven't changed a bit, really? Okay, you say so."
Sack of shit.
I didn't even go to this high school. I just come for the food. I just want to touch on one other thing.
What?
On Friday, you know where I'm going with this.
Right. Oh, big movie star. It's got a big movie coming out. Big movie star girl, bro.
Yes, I last year I filmed a scene for the movie Bros, which is coming out, starring Billy Eichner coming out, and Luke McFarlane, who's a sweetheart. They both were. They were really nice. Luke McFarlane, Madonna. I'm not into men, but if I were gay or straight, I would do this guy. Yeah. Anyway, so the movie's coming out on Friday, and I thought they cut my scene, but they didn't. It turned out.
Why would they? Why would?
Well, you never know. That's showbiz, you know. Yeah.
I'm very happy for you. It's very exciting. I can't wait to see it.
Well, I got that one coming out, and then I got another one coming out. I don't know when it is, but we filmed that in a couple of months ago.
You're not going to be able to get your head through the door soon.
No. I like making movies, but you know what? I really enjoy stand-up. There's nothing compares to stand-up.
Immediate reaction. You know where you stand. You know how they felt. You know exactly how the night went, and you're not left wondering, except for that person like this in the front row that doesn't laugh the entire time, and at the end they're like, "I had a great time." And you're like, "Really?
God, you were funny." Yeah, I had one of the. I actually did one of the. I worked an over 55 community, which I don't do a lot of, but this one in particular I've worked it before, and the people were just wonderful, and I was there Saturday night, and boy, oh boy, it was just good for the soul, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure it was good for their soul too.
It was, and I already knew that I was canceled for Florida, so it's kind of I really needed that for my morale too. So, but enough about me.
Let it rip.
Who was your favorite new relative that you saw there? That you not new, but you know that. You must
have... I had a chance to catch up with my cousins, and they were just funny. They were just telling stories that, you know, about my grandfather, and, you know, nefarious things that my uncles were they had pot plants hidden in his garden.
All right, we don't want to talk about that.
But no, they're all gone now. The property's gone, you know. But
the pot's gone, or your uncles are gone?
Nobody lives there anymore.
Oh, okay, all right.
But it was very funny, and
I'm glad you had a good time. You surprised me with that trip. You never told me you were going on it. You tell me everything, and then I call you on Thursday, and I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" And you go, "I'm going to Pittsburgh," and I'm like,
"I did tell you. You just did not pay attention."
That could be it.
Yeah, I told you, honey. I told you.
All right,
enough.
All right, let's talk about our guest tonight. Do you know our guest? Do you know him?
Actually, you've asked me this. Of course, I know him. We've had dinner together. I've seen him at shows.
All right, I'm going to flash
his comedian.
I'm going to flash. Get him off for a second. Don't bring him on yet. Get him out of there.
Get him out.
I'm going to flash his face, and you tell me if
Joey Novick.
That's right, Joey Novick. Now I've known Joe. Joey, you can come on now.
Thank you.
Put your pants up.
Like he had complete control of that.
First of all, La Tova Felcha to you.
You know, that's the first time you've ever said it funny. So
I say it every year, and you never laugh at it, you bastard.
And
now atone for that, Julia.
L'chaim Potep to you also.
Thank you very much.
Well, for people who don't know, Julia is 2% Jewish. So
that's right.
So I should only say Lashana Tova to just 2% of you. But
is that how you actually say it? Lashana Tova?
Actually, Lashana Tova means like a good year, a good new year, a blessed new year. That's what it means.
Huh. Okay.
And that's all.
That's gripping. That's gripping, Joe.
Gripping information. How to say Happy New Year in Jewish.
All right. So let me give you a little background, you folks out there.
Sure.
About Joey's and my history.
Just how about Joey's history?
I don't care about that. Oh. It's only Joey. How did Joey started? How?
I would say starting at the clubs, just like everybody else. I mean, I was part of the comic strip improv company back in the early 80s, and my background was in improv. And I actually started doing stand-up out of my improv background. That was really where I did stand-up, is to begin with, out of doing improv. And I mostly, wrote material working off the audience to, really start. That's what that was.
Wait a minute.
Mistake.
You sent me. We always ask guests to send us like bios and stuff. You were a child actor?
Yes, I was. I'm so glad you asked. I was actually.
I asked because you sent it to me in this letter right here.
Funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask, because I was a child actor. No, I was a child actor. I was 8 or 9 years old. I was 8 or 9, and I was on a television show called East Side, West Side, which was produced by David Susskind. And it was a show.
I remember that show.
It was a show with George C. Scott and Cicely Tyson. And he played it was a very dark show, very serious show. And it only lasted a season, but it was way ahead of its time. And I was only on a few shows as an extra, but it was the first time, actually shooting. You talked about how much you love shooting a movie. Shooting television, it was so interesting. And I was in an extra, and actually you can see some of them are actually still on YouTube now, which is amazing. But George C. Scott played a social worker. Cicely Tyson played his secretary. And they talk about, Black women on television. She was a single mom. He had a very tight-knit afro, and they dealt on the show with all sorts of problems, homosexuality, drugs, people, corrupt politicians. And today's standards, it would be considered like a forefront, like a very forward thinking. But this was 1963, 64. And on television. I think it was up against Sing Along with Mitch. So we can sing along with Mitch, or we can watch a show about drug addicts and homosexuals. Where do you think we should go? It's 1963. But
was it shot in New York, Joe?
Yeah, shot in New York. It was shot during the summer of 63. And I was on maybe 3 or 4 shows.
What did you play?
Oh, it was just an extra. There was one scene, and I'll send you the link. There was one scene where
it's in black and white.
It's in black and white. It was one scene where we're playing with a bunch of kids in a yard, and a young girl who's on the spectrum. She has, she probably had either Asperger's or she had some sort of illness. She comes running through to break up our playing, and I knock her down. I was
even then he was dealing with hecklers. Hecklers, no.
I knock her down, and then I go to help her back up, and she bites my arm. And we shot that scene. Which in the actual presentation, it's the name of the episode is called "My Child on Monday Morning," and the actual series.
Okay, Joe. Yeah, it's only a 45-minute show, okay. And this is the first fucking question.
We need to get out of the 60s. We have a few more.
By the way,
sure, we have.
Joe used to book clubs, and he didn't book me. And I bit his arm several times.
I booked you. I definitely booked you.
I'm gonna annoy the crap out of you today. This is my 40 years later. This is my turn.
This is your show.
No, Joe used to book a lot of rooms back in the beginning, the early days of comedy, right?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I booked. I had Bananas Comedy Club. I booked the Billy Jack Cafe of Comedy in Glastonbury, Connecticut. I booked the Treehouse Clubs for a while. So I booked maybe 4 or 5 weekend rooms. So
and Betty's Fireside, did you not?
Betty's Fireside, I probably booked 1 or 2 shows.
Kathy, do you know about Betty's Fireside?
No, I don't know. Where is this?
Well, it's no longer in existence, but it was up near Denville, New Jersey, I think is where it was. It was up in the hinterlands back. Wasn't that where it was, Denville?
I cannot remember, but it was absolutely the worst gig. I don't know why they continued to do comedy, but the audience would constantly talk. They would never shut up. And the stage, believe it or not, was actually behind the bar.
You ask any comic my age or from my generation that's from New York, that they all worked this place, and everybody had a horror story about this place. It's just next to Pips in Brooklyn. This was the worst place ever.
Oh, next to Betty's Fireside, playing Pips was like playing the best room in Las Vegas. I mean, it was absolutely the worst gig. The owners would heckle you while you were on stage. The bartender would heckle you while you're on stage.
It was like almost like a biker bar. You know, it was a horrible place. I don't even. You think it's still in existence?
I don't think so. I worked there once, believe it or not, with Max Dolcelli and with Otto and George.
Wow!
And they would not give Max or I a second. And then when Otto got up there, you know what Otto does. I mean, Otto just kills in the room.
Someday we're gonna have to do a show just about Otto and George. But
Joey, you're an attorney. You're an attorney now, and were you an attorney then?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, okay. I went to law school at the age of 47, graduated at the age of 50.
Gotcha. Okay. So that was before pre-law.
It was a surprise to me when I found out that he became a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a surprise.
It was total surprise.
I didn't even know that I was in law school.
What made you take that jump from comedy to law?
Very short story. I was in college. I started doing stand-up comedy right after college. I had made a law school. I was going to go to a law school in California. I just, started liking doing comedy, and I figured I'd put law school off for a while, which was a great call to my mother, calling her and telling a Jewish mother that I wasn't going to go to law school. That was an excellent conversation on the phone. And had no intention of going to law school, got into politics, became an elected official. That rekindled my desire for the law. And when I discovered I could go at night, I took the LSAT, got a very good score on the LSAT, and went to Seton Hall University Law right here in New Jersey.
Yes, I have a sweatshirt from Seton Hall.
There you go.
Nice.
They have my money. I did not get a sweatshirt.
Oh, well, I don't know how I got it. It just showed up in my closet one day.
Yeah.
I think it's from an ex somewhere.
It's a Catholic university, so maybe an angel dropped it in the closet.
In fact, when I made Seton Hall University, they gave me a scholarship money, and I called up my mother and I said, "Mom, I was accepted to Seton Hall University. They gave me money, and in order to accept the money, I have to sign an agreement that I accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior." And my mother's screaming on the phone, "You're not going to take the money. You're not going to take the money. You don't take the money." And she calls my father to the phone. And this was all a scam. She calls my father to the phone and says, "Bernie," he says, "Joey, tell your father what you just told me." And I said, "Oh, I got this money from Seton Hall. I have to sign an agreement to accept the money, that I accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior." My father, silent, completely silent. And he says, "Well, look, you know you're Jewish. We know you're Jewish. Sign the paper. Take the money."
Yay, Dad!
Yay! That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
But it was not true. I didn't have to do that. But I thought it was a great story.
It's a good story.
Well, let's talk about you. I mean, I can't have a conversation with you for more than, I don't know, 48 seconds without you mentioning being Jewish. Somewhere it gets in there, no matter what the hell we're talking about. Even when I'm talking about the Pope, you're like, "Oh, did you know he's a closet Jew?" I'm like, "No, I didn't know that, Joe."
Well,
So let's talk about your connection to the Catskills comic.
Oh, that is, we've been doing these shows out at a Jewish deli called Catskills on the Delaware. And, for those of you who are watching and don't know, the Catskills began in the late 1920s, mid 1920s, when Jews were not allowed because of...
30 seconds in, he already got the trouble.
But you asked.
No, but this is very important, is that many places, hotels and bungalow colonies began to open up in the Catskills, which allowed Jews in because many hotels were restricted. And of course, when you have a group of people at a hotel, they're going to need entertainment. And the entertainment that began going up there were young comedians. The word tumler in Yiddish means, it's like to tummel. Tumler means somebody that's the life of the party, somebody who goes nuts, somebody who's a little crazy. And every hotel had their own tumler. Mm-hmm. And some of the people who are comedy legends who became the tumblers at these hotels, like Grossingers and the Homowack and the Neville, everybody from Buddy Hackett to Mel Brooks to Paul Reiser. I mean, all of these people, Don Rickles, all of these people as Jewish comedians were the tumblers, and they were the people who would maybe be the hosts of the show at night. And, you probably saw this on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, actually, sort of like a representation of a Catskill hotel. But the interesting thing about it is my parents, 1948, Pearl and Bernie Novick got married. They spent a week in their honeymoon at the Neville Hotel. The tumler back then as a young comedian was Buddy Hackett. So in my parents' pictures of their honeymoon, there's 2 or 3 pictures of Buddy Hackett just acting really crazy, like he's in a tuxedo and he's on the not the gangplank, the diving board, and he's about to jump in, and he's wearing a tuxedo top, and he's wearing like long boxer shorts. He's wearing long boxer shorts in the background, and it's just very funny to see this happen. And this is where a lot of comedians got their stage time, just like we did at clubs.
Well, I have a Buddy Hackett story actually. When I was a teenager, I worked at Palisades Amusement Park.
Oh wow, okay.
In Fort Lee, New Jersey, and Buddy Hackett was he lived like a couple of blocks outside of there, but he was a cop from Fort Lee. He was like what do you call the reservist? When they
National Guard?
No. He was a cop with the police department. He was sort of he didn't carry a gun or anything, but they let him like
an auxiliary volunteer.
Yeah, auxiliary. That was the word. I had it in my head and then it went away. But he used to patrol Fort Lee.
Wow.
Yeah, as an auxiliary cop. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was interesting because I grew up watching Buddy Hackett and being a big fan, and I didn't realize what a complete a-hole Buddy Hackett was. He had a terrible reputation in the business, and I ran into him years later, coincidentally, at a shoe store. True story. At a shoe store in Soho, Rosie and I are shopping, and I see him there, and I walk over and I say, "Oh, Mr. Hackett, I'm a stand-up comedian, blah, blah, blah. My parents were big fans." And he looks at me and he goes, "Who the F are you to bother me while I'm trying to shop with my wife?" He goes, "F you, F this store." And he goes storming out. And we get kicked out of the store for bothering Buddy Hackett. Now, I feel horrible, but years later, I'm working with Dennis Wolfberg, and I told Dennis Wolfberg the story, and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm headlining this club, I'm headlining this theater in Las Vegas, and Buddy Hackett is headlining this other club, and I see him having dinner at a restaurant, and I walk over and I say, 'Oh, Mr. Hackett, I'm a big fan, I'm headlining, I'm opening up for Diana Ross,' and Buddy Hackett looks at Dennis and goes, 'How dare you, F you, I can't believe you ruined my dinner.' He throws the plate on the floor and he just walks away. And that made me feel so much better, knowing that it wasn't me. But to this day, Rosie still blames me for being kicked out of that store. So, but that was, some people are not that nice when they don't have to be that nasty. He was just very nasty.
No, I don't know why he would be. There's the story, the Don Rickles story with Sinatra, right?
Oh.
You know that one. You know that one, Kathy?
Yes, I do.
No.
Please tell the story. That is so funny.
So, all right. So Sinatra is in the restaurant. I don't forget, in New York, really ritzy restaurant, and Rickles knows him at this point. Rickles is already famous, and he goes over to Frank Sinatra. He's got a date. He comes in with a date. He goes to Sinatra. "Listen, my girl's over there. It would, I'd score major points if you could just come over and say hi, Don," something like that, And he goes, "Yeah, sure. So Rickles goes and eats, right? He's sitting there, and they're halfway through the meal, and then Sinatra comes over. "This is Sinatra," right? And he goes, "Hiya, Don," or something like that. Rickles doesn't even miss a beat. He goes, "Frank, I told you a million times, don't bother me when I'm eating dinner." And supposedly Sinatra just lost it.
I saw Rickles. In fact, this is on the Carson show. Rickles and Sinatra on the Carson panel, and Sinatra tells this story, and it's such a killer telling by Sinatra, and it was totally surprised. He had no idea. He thinks he's doing the guy a favor, and he goes, "Yeah, the punchline." I mean, it was just a great story. Absolutely.
We had Bill Persky on a couple of weeks back, and they keep. And you guys should, if you haven't seen it yet, you should watch it. He talked about how when he was working, right, Kath, when he was in Brooklyn at that place, the Elegante, was that the name of it? And Rickles was just starting out, and he was talking about how mean he was. Like, it wasn't an act; he was really that mean.
It's so funny because, like, Eddie Brill, who we both know, very very good friend, Don Rickles would periodically be on the Letterman show.
Right.
Letterman is usually kind of acerbic with,
and for background, Eddie Brill was the warm up for.
Oh yeah, Eddie Brill warmed up the audience, and he would also book a lot of the young comedians on the show. And Eddie Brill would tell a story about how sweet Don Rickles was. He would be in his dressing room. They would talk about the business, and for a comedian of our generation to be able to sit there with somebody like Don Rickles or George Carlin or somebody else is just such a thrill. But he said that when he would go on the show, he would just be so much faster than David Letterman, and just boom, 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 and just make fun of the cameraman. That was his nature. That was what he did on stage, and he just exuded love with attacking people in there.
Well, there was a couple of Catskill, like Jack Carter, supposedly. Do you know him, Kath?
Yeah, of course, Jack Carter, sure.
Everybody apparently hated Jack Carter. He was the Ted Cruz of comedy. With other comics,
Oh my.
Yeah,
Raphael Carter. Sorry.
It's funny you mentioned, because there are a lot of comics. So many comedians started out in the Catskills that many of them moved up to would move up to Westchester and Rockland County to be near. That's why in the Dick Van Dyke show, when they live in New Rochelle, that's because that is where Carl Reiner lived, to be close to the Catskills, to go to gigs up in that area.
And he lived on Bonnie Meadow Drive, just as the same way with Robert Law
right?
Petrie. Yeah. It was almost the same address.
And Bill, when we interviewed Bill Persky, he referenced that. He said almost everything that happened in their shows happened in somebody's life that they brought to the table.
Yeah, that's the thing that I found when I was a kid. I mean, if you ask me to pick out a show, like you ask young kids today, why do you want to be a stand-up comedian? He says, oh, I watched the Seinfeld show and I was very inspired. You know, I kind of love that. But for me, and probably Julia and many other comedians, the Dick Van Dyke Show was like this inside view. And Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks on a PBS show were talking about how all of these ideas of these things that came up because they happened in real life. They couldn't, and he says you can't write that stuff. No. You can't sit down and make up the kind of stories that they.
But that's a tipping point for comedians. Back then, Kath, you in the 60s, like you were still doing what I call the shecky jokes. You know, my wife is, and and this show, I think, inspired comics to talk about their own lives, where you didn't have to buy jokes anymore. You know, like we write, Kath, right? And Joey, we write.
It almost seems it kind of coincided with, if you see, like, there was the beginning of the 60s where people were a certain way, and then there were the end of the 60s where they were a completely different way, you know, in terms of
like the Alan King, Robert Klein, I think that's that's where they seem to pinpoint where comedy took a change.
It's really funny because Julia and I grew up probably watching comedy on the Ed Sullivan Show. Right. If you were any comic at all, you were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and guys like Jack Carter and Mousy Lawrence and a lot of comedians that never really made it big all would get there 8 or 9 minutes on, but you had to be scrupulously clean. Right. You had to do material that couldn't even refer to sex in any way, because it had to be absolutely perfect for a Sunday night audience. But then when what Julia is referring to is when
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's a well-known fact that the very famous comic Jackie Penis Head had to change his name because Ed Sullivan.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No,
Jackie Penis Head,
had to change his name to.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To Schmecky, and anyway, but when HBO, when I'm sorry, not even HBO, when the Johnny Carson show, when he took over the Carson show in '62, he's on NBC. The Ed Sullivan had this very powerful column. He's on CBS, and Ed Sullivan would not allow any comedians on the Tonight Show who were names. So Carson naturally had to, saying, well, gee, we'll book young comedians. We'll give them. That became the starting point of having all these young comedians. And if you go on and you look at Jay Leno and Don and David Brenner and trying to think of who else, all of these comedians just starting out, and the Tonight Show, that is really why they got on the Tonight Show.
And all of them, Kath, all of them came out of Pips. They all started at Pips. It's horrible. Joan Rivers, Rodney, David Brenner, all of them. They worked this horrible club. And but Robert Klein, and I started to say that. Do you agree, Joe, that he was? People point to him as the new comic. He was the bridge between Alan King and the comedy as we know it today.
Absolutely. There's a great book called The Last Laugh by Betsy Borns, and the book follows stand-up comedy from the end of World War II all the way through. The book ends with the first performance of Robert Klein on HBO, I believe, because Robert Klein did not do jokes. Robert Klein did routines, talking about life, talking about, things that ironically we consider like hack material today. But the difference between being able to do 7 minutes on the Tonight Show and an hour on HBO was language. And of course, like you, Julia, I've seen Julia, I'm going to compliment you now, which really believe me, bothers me that I actually have to compliment you on video. But in all seriousness, I've seen Julia. Somebody says to her, "Do 45 minutes."
Oh no, he froze and he was about to compliment.
I know, right? Up. That's God intervening.
You son of a bitch. He's frozen. Look at him.
No, I'm sorry. I was making believe. An hour and 10 minutes later, you're killing, and it's because you're doing comedy like you're a jazz drummer. You're doing comedy like boom, 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 and you can't do that on a show like the Tonight Show. Because you're building up, you're going back, you're doing callbacks, and I think that's really the advantage of a place like HBO, because of course language. I always considered Carlin, Richard Pryor, and Robert Klein the three people that more or less, after Lenny Bruce, created much of the stand-up comedy environment that we have today.
And Joey, just to dovetail, you're talking about being able to do anywhere from 7 minutes on the Tonight Show to an hour in a stadium, and again, don't tell Juliet, but the fact that you can stand in front of a national audience and do 90 seconds, like she did on America's Got Talent, and still get the point across, and still get, I can't even tell you how many laughs you had per that 90 seconds, but it was, that's hard too.
I had 12. Limited 12
laughs. Well, 90 seconds.
But I think, but I think that's also a function of someone like Julia, who is a consummate professional and knows exactly how to use her time very well. I think that's a tribute to her as a professional who's been doing it for a billion years.
Well, Kathy and I worked that set out together.
You guys,
what happened? You froze up. Who's frozen now? Joey, you're still frozen? You there?
He's there.
You just now you're good again, but you just froze for a second.
Oh no, I said Kathy and I worked that set out, and we must have how many hundreds of times did we
you know what we really prepared for, and everybody gets up on a stage, but when you're in front of a national, international audience live, and you have no safety net, and those aren't normal performances, because now you have like these judges in front of you, and you have to talk beforehand and all these other things. So what we really prepared for was just the moment, like trying to almost muscle memory, make sure that you knew exactly where you were going at all times, because the moment could have gotten too overwhelming for you, where you're just like, oh crap. But
and that's television comedy, doing stand-up on television. That's it in a nutshell. Any stand-up you do on any television show, you need to be prepared for, unless it's like an HBO where you can just ad-lib your ass off, and they'll cut it later. But
as much as you think you're prepared for that moment, you're not, because of the lights and the energy and the people buzzing around, and crazy clowns riding around on unicycles, throwing confetti in the air, and just whatever. But
they don't know what you're talking about.
I know, but it makes me laugh.
I think it's a very different environment that is sort of gives comedians like Julia and others an opportunity to be seen in a huge venue, which obviously has helped your career a great deal, to have people see you in that venue. But I still think, like the being in the Roman Coliseum against the Lions, the best test for a real stand-up comedian is in front of a live audience in a club or in a theater, where you got to make them laugh in the moment for that 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Television is a great way to put yourself out there, no question about it. But I still think that the best comedians are the ones that can handle that audience, that is a packed crowd, that is in front of a comedy club. That's why I love a comedy club environment.
Let's talk about taking comedian out of their element. And I know in my life, I became a teacher, and I used humor in my classroom all the time. You decided to go into seek public office. How that must have helped, right?
Well, it definitely, I'm a Democrat, and for many years I was the only Democrat on the borough council, and many times they did not know how to run against me because I have a very thick skin. Like in my first campaign, I'm going door to door, and I learned a lot more because I really had no idea what I was doing. I mean, quite frankly, I had zero idea of what the issues were or anything. But I remember a woman asked me at the door, do you think we should raise taxes to fix the roads, or do you think we should bond it to fix the roads? And I had no idea what she was talking about. No idea what she was talking about. But I said, look, I'm out here not to tell you what I think. I'm really out here to listen to what you have to say. And that became a much better, way to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And the first attack piece, I still have this somewhere. The Republicans sent out a piece that said, just say no to Joey. Tell him to sit down. We don't want his stand-up act on council, which was very funny.
Well, they must have seen you're a stand-up act.
I responded. It's a little kitty in the background. I responded with a great line from Will Rogers. Will Rogers said, I'm a comedian. When I tell a joke, he gets a laugh. He's a politician. When he tells a joke, it becomes a law. And that actually kind of changed the whole perspective. I ended up winning. I beat a guy that was an 18-year incumbent. And, you have to keep your sense of humor. Plus, it definitely helps to be able to articulate your points of view in a very creative and engaging way, which comedians do every day.
I apologize for my cat. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Kat.
I found over the course of my life, anytime you mention to somebody you're a comedian, they kind of perk up and they go, oh, it's like there's some like level of, oh my gosh, that's really like almost like I don't want to say they believe you more, but they're like, they want to hear what you have to say. And it's like, oh, really? Tell me, what do you talk about? Blah, 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 blah.
It's because it's so rare to come across one of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like saying, I'm a professional archer.
Out there. Yeah. But no, but all kidding aside, I think it's something that people respect a great deal.
Yeah, that's a good word.
As a skill set, because I think it was in the book of lists that the number one fear is something that we do every single time we have a gig, is getting up in front of people and talking. And most people have a fear of doing that. And we're doing that. And in the case of Julia and many other comedians, you're not only communicating with them, you're getting them to laugh, right. which is amazing as a skill.
And it's so funny. Julie and I were talking before this, before you came on, Joey, and I was at a family reunion this weekend at my parents' house, and there were about 40, 45 people there. I had extreme anxiety being in the room with 45 people, like mingling. But then if you put me on stage, I'd be fine in front of 45 or 4,500 people. But it's really weird. I don't know if that happens to you guys, but like being.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's a control thing or
the audience. Julia will tell you the audience is anonymous. You don't know who they are. You don't. You have no connection to them. So I don't think there's as much pressure. I don't know, Julia, if you feel the same way.
I hate going to parties because I'm not in control. When I'm on stage, I'm in control of everything. I like to believe that I am. I'm not, but But
you have the microphone that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, I've done it. It's really too bad. I hope that you get a chance to do your closing speech at another conference when you get rebooked.
I could do it now. You want me to do it now?
I was hoping you wouldn't do it now, but I can sense that you want to. But I think that I do a lot of before COVID, I would do a lot of conferences where I would speak. I do a program called the Improvisational Lawyer, and it's all of the skill sets that I've developed as a improviser on how that can help trial attorneys stand in front of a jury and speak off the top of their head with confidence. And I get paid to do that. I mean, when I'm speaking at a conference, but it's the same set of skills that I've developed as a stand-up comedian, or especially in politics. I mean, I'll tell you a brief a story. I was running for election, and I was in front of a very hostile audience, about 90% Republican and 90% conservative Republican. And I spoke for about maybe 5 or 6 minutes. And then what I like doing is a lot of politicians don't like doing this. I like taking questions, because when I take questions, I think I'm at my best as an improviser to take questions. So the first question I get from a person, he says, "Hey, what kind of name is Joey for an adult?" And I thought that was, I laughed because it was such a, hostile question. And I said, "Thank you very much. That's a great question. In the Jewish religion," there I am mentioning Jews again. "In the Jewish religion, you're named after someone who has passed away. I'm named after my grandfather, who was also named Joey or Joseph. And I carry his name, which I have to say that I'm very proud of. I'm proud to carry such a wise and wonderful man, his name, and I hope I can look up to it." So then I say to him, I said, "Oh, by the way, sir, what's your name?" And he says to me, "My name is Murray." And I said, "Oh, Murray, that's the same name as the dog on the Paul Reiser show." Huge laugh in the room. Huge laugh in the room. But, his wife actually apologized to me afterward because it was such a hostile question, But
you bring up an interesting point, though. Had that been a conversation between two comics, we both would have laughed, because I've done that to you a million times. You've done that to me a million times.
Right.
And so what's the difference, comic to comic? Let's take, for example, the roasts, where brutal stuff is said about it. But go ahead.
I think it's intention. I think it's, it's knowing somebody and the intention. Like, you can rib your siblings, but if you don't know somebody and it's totally, you don't know their intentions, and they come up to you and they're attacking you, or you feel that you're attacked, then there's no base of understanding what their intentions are.
Joey has a theory about it too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the roasts, sometimes the roasts get really, really brutal. I mean, they get like major brutal. And I think the ones that they show on television are really done for entertainment purposes, on just how clever. You want to watch one, where they're like ripping Ann Coulter and they're ripping Donald Trump, and these comedians just, there's no subject that is, I'm even embarrassed to listen to some of this. It is so brutal. But I think that is somewhat different than the way comedians are sometimes with each other. Like Julie and I have a relationship in which, we'll kid around with each other and attack each other. And, Julie will say, "Oh, well, that's really the way I feel." And I'll laugh at that also. And no, but it really is the way. No, but we'll, and it's, I think that there's a certain respect and love in being able to do that with someone who you've known for a long time, and they know that it's not real. They know that it's part of.
It's kind of like they're an uncle when you were growing up. I don't know if you had one. I had one that this uncle would just say semi nasty stuff to me about make fun of me, and and if God forbid you would be too sensitive about it. Did you ever have that, Kath? Anybody? Do you have a relative that just said stuff to you?
I had an uncle that, I have red hair, obviously, and I had an uncle, and he'd grab me around the neck and he'd rub my head and he'd go, "I'd rather be dead than red on the head." That's what he'd say to me. And
oh my God.
I know, but it was like he was It was
But that's the
not
same thing. That's exactly
the same thing. And I knew he didn't mean that. He was
so. Is
just
it? Do you? And this
on.
question is for both of you. Then, so do you think the art of the insult is best left to the professionals?
Yeah, probably.
Well,
You know,
it depends on your
I
relationship.
I mean, I do have a relative that every once in a while I think he comes off his meds, and he, you know, we have political discussions on Facebook, and I don't know what it is with Facebook where people think they can just insult to no
The anonymity.
end.
Right.
Oh my God, it's crazy. I mean, I've seen him say things and attack me for being a Democrat, attack me for being a liberal, and make fun of, like, I'll say something about the LGBTQIA community, and he'll say, "Oh yeah, I have a lot of friends in the LMFFT community," you know, and just kind of like trying to make fun of that in a way.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's really pointless. But I do think it's best left to the professionals.
They're keyboard warriors. They're very brave behind their keyboard. It's nothing they would say to your face.
Yeah.
Well, they're the same people that used to write on bathroom walls, bathroom stall walls.
For a good time, call Julia Scotty. And then they went, "Who's Julia?"
You love that joke, don't you? I love that joke too.
But
by the way, I just an aside here. I did that joke.
Yeah.
At the shows on Saturday, killed.
Really?
And
so they've got to tell the joke.
Because the joke is, my mother used to.
No, tell the joke.
I'm gonna tell the joke.
Oh, you just froze up on me.
Oh
no.
Yeah.
So the premise is that. Can I tell the joke? Bad habits catch up with you. Blah 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 blah. My mother, which used to catch me stealing cigarettes out of her pocketbook, before she beat me with the vacuum cleaner pipe, she would say to me, "One of these days, Julia, your bad habits are going to catch up with you. One of these days, Julia, you'll see, Julia." And I just look her right in the eye and go, "Oh yeah, who's Julia?"
Yeah. One of my favorite jokes.
Yeah. And you know, most of the time there's that hesitation, but some people will get it. To me, it's my favorite joke I ever wrote, and this audience was just was spectacular on Saturday. So kudos to them, or kudos, depending on where you're from.
Kudos.
So Joe,
Joe, are you still on council? Are you still a council member?
No, I was on council for 15 years, from 1994 to 2006. Then I got reelected when I ran again in 2012. So I had 15 years separated by a few years. And right now I've worked, by the way, periodically as a political consultant running others' campaigns, and I've run 2 congressional campaigns. I've run probably anywhere between half a dozen to a dozen state level campaigns. In fact, Julia came down and did a benefit for a very good friend of mine who was running for assembly in South Jersey.
Got
in
clobbered.
A very tough Republican.
The guy got clobbered.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because it's your fault.
No.
It was me.
She
should have had a better comedian.
She's a good friend. Ellen is a very good friend of mine from the Garden State Equality Group. She took on running against somebody who's a long-term, very conservative Republican, and it really was like, you know,
he's my congressman.
You know,
I think he's my congressman.
I mean, like almost like running into a brick wall. But my heart goes out to her, and I really wanted her to feel. So I put together a benefit with myself, Eddie Clark, and Julia, who really, you know, they gave up their time in an incredibly great show to raise money for her. You know.
Do you think she'll run again, or is she going to get out?
Thank you.
Do you think she'll run again?
Well, you know, she's. I'm not sure if she'll run again. I would love to get her. Her name is Ellen Duvall. I would love to see her run again. She's a brilliant woman. I mean, she's really, absolutely a brilliant woman. And I really do wish that she would have her opponent would have agreed.
That's very nice, very nice. But there are fans in like Spain. or now going, "Como está, Ellen Duvall?"
I asked him the question though. He was.
I know you did, but
I yell at me. Don't yell at Joey. You come
Okay,
at
I'm
me,
sorry.
Scotty.
it's no fun to yell at you. It's a lot of fun to yell at Joey, though. I love
know.
yelling.
I know,
He
but
really-
she enjoys. Hey, you know, I will be Kathy. If you do something wrong, I will be the whipping boy. Julia can yell at me. If you do
He
something
likes
wrong,
it.
I will.
He likes being the whipping boy.
Hey, that's extra in a different show.
He's a very,
In a
very
different
bad
show.
boy. He's a bad,
Funny.
bad boy.
So,
All right.
so you have a
it's,
show like I know this. Well, you have shows coming up, Joey.
Yeah, well, I've got. I have another Catskills show, Catskills on the Delaware, coming up October 22nd. I've got. I'm hosting the show. Bob Greenberg, who starred in Old Jews Telling Jokes, is on the show. Dave Koenig is a very funny stand-up comedian who was on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel show, is also on the show. And tickets are selling at a pretty good clip. I mean, we probably have them about half the seats sold right now. But I figure we've every one of these shows has either been a sellout or close to a sellout, and the shows are done at the comedy club called the Borscht Belt, which is in Stockton, New Jersey, and it's a deli that's set up entirely like the Borscht Belt. Hotels in the Catskills. They just have pictures all over the walls, and all the sandwiches are named after the hotels. It's actually a pretty cool place. So that's what we do there.
Well, thank you. Well, listen, I know we've run a little long because I know that because my ass is killing me with arthritis here. But I really, Joey, it's nice that
that was my plan.
My ass is killing me.
Isn't she charming?
I gotta thank you.
You do have bamboo. Julia, you do have bamboo toilet paper to
That's
look forward
right.
to,
I do.
So I think you'll be okay.
I can't wait to get it. Anyway, Joey, thanks so much for being a friend, and thanks for coming on. And I don't know. Is there
anything you want to promote while we have you?
Well, just
Me?
the October 22nd show is coming on. I'm also writing a book. I'm actually writing a joke book called the Official Borscht Belt Joke Book. What I'm doing is I've scanned the internet and scanned, to write all of the jokes in one place that a lot of the comedians used in the Borscht Belt. So that'll be up on Amazon sometime the end of October, beginning of November, and
he's punching up the Talmud too. He's writing jokes for the Talmud. He's punching it up. He was hired. But
Joey, will you come back just because I know it will annoy the hell out of Julia? Will you come back?
I will. I would love to come back and talk anything about comedy. Anything Julia asks me to do, I try to help her out. And I just want to say, Julia, those getting rid of your British accent is working very well. I just hear a New Jersey accent. I hear nothing from it.
That's how I got that. That's how I'm getting these choice movie roles because of my.
I know.
Joey, you're going to go see Bros. Are you going to go see Bros?
Of course, it's my prediction, as I predicted on Facebook, is this will be the highest grossing Julia Scotti movie of all time.
Yeah.
Mark my words.
All right. Susan Sandler's not going to like that, but okay. All right, Joey, we got to get out of here because
I didn't say documentary. I said movie.
Okay, the Earth has practically made an entire revolution since we started this show. A day has gone. No, not really.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being had. We love you. Bye. God, I'm glad
nice.
he's gone.
My God,
no.
God, why aren't you nice to that man? He's very nice man.
Because if I didn't tease him, he wouldn't know how much I love him. Really? So there we go.
He puts up with a lot of shit for me.
He does put up with it. Yeah, all my friends put up with a lot of shit for me.
How long have you known him?
Oh my God, I know him 40 years.
Wow, well, no wonder.
Yeah, he had a lot more hair when I met him.
You better not give me shit like that in 40 years.
Well, you're gonna have to.
I'm not gonna put up with it. I'll tell you that much.
I got news for you. They're gonna put my urn in your living room. So
I'm gonna put you right on my TV stand.
hey, you know, this was the end of show number 6, I think, right? Right?
I think so.
Yeah. We got a lot of good guests coming up in the near future.
You're doing a great job, Julia Scotty. I'll tell you that much. Kumbaya.
Oh, my Lord. All right.
All right, baby. Love you. Bye, gang.
Play us out.
Be good to each other.